CJ, I want to ask you specifically. I mentioned you are the president of our Players Association. CBA talks ongoing. The date's sort of been pushed ahead of a June 30th opt-out date, I believe. Is that correct?
Allegedly.
Okay. Good. I want to ask you specifically about load management because this seems to be a particular point of contention with people in my world now, in the media, certainly with fans, rightfully so. I'm sure players are talking about this and they see everything that's being said. They see videos on Twitter of kids flying in to watch Jimmy Butler play and him not being available. You have a tough task, of course, leading our union and dealing with owners. Is there a good solution? Is there a good way to solve this issue?
I've been dealing with this for weeks, months, years now, and I think the biggest thing is this, right? We want our stars to play as much as possible, right? We want them to play nationally televised games. We'd love for them to play all local games. We'd love for them to play back-to-backs, even the bad back-to-backs that we know shouldn't exist, like landing in Milwaukee at 3 o'clock and having to play, a 7 o'clock game. Those travel back-to-backs, like all those things we think are important and we want our players to play in. But we also understand that there's two folds, right? There's two folds. There's guys who really love basketball, and it's hard to get them to not play. And there's guys who, a normal 9 to 5, right, where they're just good at the job. And that's just the honest truth. And I think it's the balance of making sure that we're exerting ourselves properly, that we're also taking care of ourselves, but also the accountability factor of being realistic with the expectations and goals that we set on players and staff. Dame talked about it. They had a back-to-back against us. He really wanted to play. The staff held him out. They wouldn't let him play. That was a situation in which I'm sure he would have loved to play against me. I would have loved to play against him. The fans would have loved to watch it. But the team and the staff felt like him coming off an injury that wasn't the best for him and that they wanted to kind of protect him from himself. That's one scenario. The other scenario is, a back-to-back in which a guy just doesn't want to play and he doesn't play. And we want to try to prevent those situations from happening. But we also have to understand twofold. Majority of the money that we get in our game is generated on playoffs, and we need the best players to be available to play in the playoffs because although fans do care about a random Tuesday in Sacramento, they also care about April, May, and June when it's the summertime and there's not school for the kids and it's easier to travel, it's more accessible, there's more eyes, there's more viewership, and there's more dollars that are generated from ad revenue. So I think when you look at all those factors, I don't have a solution. I'm trying to find one, but I think the happy medium is figuring out how to schedule games more properly, and Evan's going to watch this, and I'm going to get a call from the NBA because that's the way this job works. But I just want to go on the record saying that I think it's important from a scheduling standpoint. Obviously, we have a calendar to work with. We have arenas. We have all those things. But when they schedule certain types of games, like does it make sense for Giannis to play a travel back-to-back? Like when he's going to land at 2, get to his room at 2:35, his bag's not going to come till 3:15. That's your franchise. Like, we've gone through it. A lot of teams have gone through it. Every team is an injury away from a 10-game losing streak, right? Like, we just went through it, right? So I think it's the important factor of figuring out how to win, how to maximize our support from fans, how to give them what they want, while being able to put on a show for 82 games in a tough calendar year.
I think you bring up... Sorry, what'd you say? Okay.
I have a Pelicans hat on.
They just talk about...
Oh, we talking about how the Warriors hat all their players. Okay. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, I see a Pelicans hat.
I got you.
No, you bring up another great point, but this is what I'll say. Like, whether that was right or wrong, first of all, we won, so I'll take it. Let's just start with that. We'll take it. Sit everybody. We needed that win. But secondly, they're in a situation where they're trying to protect their assets. So I have to be like, I have to play both sides of the fence, right? On one hand, they only come here once or twice. They end up sitting players in both games. Our fans will get to see it. On the other hand, they're paying a guy $50 million a year to try to protect him from himself, and then he ends up getting hurt. And so they're their analytical staff, their medical staff would say, like, maybe we should have sat him more. You know what I mean? So it's like the catch-22 or whatever the case may be, where you want to protect the players, but we also want our fans to be able to see players. And, like I went to Milwaukee and I didn't play in Milwaukee. It was a back-to-back. I'm dealing with some hand issues. I'm having some injuries that I'm dealing with personally. And it didn't make sense for me to play in a game where I went to sleep at 5 a.m. because I got to my room at 3:15 a.m. It's the high risk for injury versus reward.
Yeah, you bring up 2 points that I want to touch on. Number one, I totally agree with you on the scheduling stuff. If you are going to schedule nationally televised games specifically, where you're trying to get Jokic versus Giannis, don't schedule a fucking game the night before for both teams. That doesn't make any sense to me. And we've seen that a number of times. Like, I think it's hard because there's so many games per week. The arenas are used for other things. It's difficult. I wouldn't want to be the computer or the group of people that schedule these games using whatever algorithm they got. It's tough. But if we are going to say we want marquee games, let's not have the teams play the night before. That seems like if we can limit that as much as possible, that's a possible solution. The other side you bring up is the medical staff side. And you kind of broke it down, and I thought it was perfect. There's the guys that you have to literally mandate. We have to sit you out. No, I'm playing tonight. No, mandated. You are sitting out. And then there's, I think, a group of guys, because you've done it a couple times, you've set a precedent now. And they don't necessarily love to play as much as maybe the other group. And so because you've set that precedent of we're going to sit you out here, coming back from injury, whatever, maybe it's a travel back-to-back, whatever. Every team is different in how they do this. But it sort of gives them an out. It gives the player an out. So for all the guys, and there's a bunch of guys in media that are saying this, oh, it's the teams. No, it's not always the teams that are sitting these guys out. Sometimes it is the players. Am I wrong on that?
I am pro player, so.
I am pro player too, CJ.
I know, but I'm really pro player right now. Like, the proest of pro players. I cannot confirm or deny those allegations, but what I will say is that we don't have a solution.
Your expression, as I started talking, you were like interested, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I know what he's gonna say. Oh shit.
We all know what we're dealing with here, but I think the issue is how do we properly deal with this in a way in which we still can have an 82-game schedule. I'm upset with Evan because we have Mardi Gras during All-Star break. You know what I mean? I'm putting in complaints. You got 29 other teams putting in complaints about games, the timing of the games. We have a 9 p.m. game tomorrow. I work for ESPN. You work for ESPN. Why are we playing at 9 p.m.? Central Time, which is 10 Eastern Time. That is insane. We have kids. We have lives. I usually go to sleep at 9:30. Like, this is I'm going to be in the first quarter at like 9:15, which is aggressive. You know what I mean? So I say all this to say I haven't quite figured out what we have to do, but this is a conversation that I have to have with players and then we have to have with the governors is what is the happy medium, understanding that the staff is going to hold us out for certain games. And if that is the case, how do we move through that? And then how do we also avoid situations in which players aren't being forced to play in games, because that's not what we want. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to compete for a championship. And you have to do whatever is best for your individual team, regardless of what that does or how that affects the public population. Because if the Warriors win a championship, no one's going to care that Steph's out on that random Tuesday. If you're a Warriors fan, you might be mad you didn't get to see him play, but that's the case for him. And then same for us and our team.
Do you feel
fair.
like
It's a fair point.
Do you feel like another challenge is, fans just may not know the extent of guys who have injuries, but they're playing through injuries, because obviously teams and players are not going to be fully transparent with every single, thing where you have a sprain here or even a broken bone here in certain cases and you're playing through it. And so I understand why the teams don't want to do this for a bunch of different reasons, but there is a sense of like, is it frustrating at all when it's like, you have an injury, you're playing through an injury, and you sit out a night and people get mad about it. And you're like, well, there's a real reason why I'm sitting.
I'll let Jose speak to this because he's played through some injuries I've told him to sit down with.
Nah, you got it, bro. I'm gonna play through. I'm in a different situation than, you know, JJ and you. I'm going to play, you know. I'm trying to get a lot of money. So, y'all can count on me playing every single night. No, but, I mean, I feel like, for me, player-wise, there's a lot of things that comes with that. You know, you want to play as much, me speaking personally, I want to play as much as games as I can. But also it comes about, I would think a lot of stuff like if I don't play now, how that affects me later on, or how that affects me, you know, with my rhythm, my rotation and stuff like that. So it's a lot to go with it, but you know, I think to be more clear with the injuries, you just got. I mean, I really don't have an answer for that one.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah. Play through your. Not me. Don't play through your. Be safe.
I think I always tell guys, because I've played through injuries, I played through sprained ankles that have turned into broken foots. So I know the other side, and I always say, you know your body better than anybody else. And as you get older and as you grow and as you go through those learning moments, I played in a lot of games I shouldn't have played in. Just to be honest with you, I played in games where I finished a quarter with a broken foot. I finished a game with a broken finger on my shooting hand. So it's like, you got to be smart about it, and the competitive nature side is one thing, but jeopardizing your future and your career, as we've seen before, we talk about how this is a business, right? Guys get traded, they don't know about it. They give you a sweet tweet, cool tweet about how they're so thankful for everything you've done for them and how you meant so much to their franchise. And the next tweet is welcoming the guy they traded you for. So it's like you have to protect yourself too. And I think that's the mindset of myself and the executive committee and the PA is, look, you do what you got to do for your team, but you also respect the fact that you keeping the lights on for people in your household and your other family members, and you have to protect your body and your potential earnings and how you earn. And I think that's important. And I'm playing through injuries right now. A lot of guys are, and that's our personal choice. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody should do that, and I don't recommend it. I think that if you're injured versus hurt, right? You know what that means, JJ. We got some guys that'll play through injuries, and we got some guys that are really hurt. And it's a matter of which one are you and which type of player are you. And I think the teams know what they're getting into. As they go through a season, they realize some guys miss games, some guys don't. And it's a decision that they have to make because they're cutting the check. But I always err on the side of, you know your body. And I tell the guys the same thing when they come back from injuries. You're a tweak and something away from an extended period of time sitting down, so be careful and be cautious.
Definitely,
Yeah. I think that's a valid point.
We hope you had fun with us today. We hope you laughed. We hope you had fun with us today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button.